After having watched the Time for School response, some of the thoughts that came to my mind as I was watching were just how different the experiences were for each of the children as they were trying to gain their education. I feel most of the children in those situations all had a desire to become educated, to become more than they were. They all had dreams and visions of what they could accomplish. However, it was based upon location, geography, social status, whether or not those dreams would actually come true for them. And really, like they said in the video, it talked about how education and learning was the key for any of those things to ever happen. One of the points that really hit home in that movie was it talked about Ken in Japan. It talked about the high expectations that the Japanese had on their children for their schooling. And one thing that I thought was unique with that was that however high the expectations were, the children, as resilient as they are, they met those expectations. It just proved the point that whatever we're put up against in this life, we can usually meet that challenge. And I think that kind of goes along with us being divine beings. We're not just here as organisms or as random life forms. We're actually come from God. And so I feel that it's just up to whether or not the country can provide the means or the way for these children to gain the knowledge that they need to become all that they need to be. And so I like that point of these kids, no matter where they're at, they all have the potential to become something great. It's just whether or not the place that they're at gives them the resources or the ability to do so. Going along with the fact of the countries being able to supply the resources or the ability that the countries have to supply these resources, I wanted to refer to Jefferson in Brazil as kind of an example of a poor outcome of these countries not being able to provide. I thought in Brazil, kind of my understanding of what Brazil was, I thought it was a relatively industrious, safe, almost comparable to the United States. But after watching that video and seeing some of the negative results of gang violence, of drug abuse, of corrupt governments, things like that, I realized that these people that live in these areas, such as Brazil, really have a hard road ahead of them if they want to become educated. Jefferson's example, he's a smart, really bright young boy. However, he has a lot to go up against, and he's in a position where getting out of the slums is going to either mean a whole life's work of dedication, of effort, and putting his whole soul into it. Otherwise, or else it's going to be probably his life. He may die because of the fact he wants to get out of the slums. And that's just kind of the hard truth of it. And I think you see that as well in the Afghanistan example of Shugafa, and also in all of them really in India as well. And India was kind of a sad story as well. At least Jefferson in Brazil, he had the opportunity to retry fifth grade and to mature and grow up and to move on if circumstances allow. But in India, with Niraj, it wasn't as kind of bright. The hope wasn't so much there because she didn't quite have a supporting background. Her family wasn't all for gaining an education as Jefferson's was. And so it really comes down to the culture of society. Are they going to be able to break that culture? Is there enough support for them to overcome that? And I think I saw a lot of that on my mission. There's a culture in areas of the world, even within the United States of America. I served in New York, and the culture is that you're Catholic, and the culture is that you stay with your family, and you don't necessarily go after the truth that you feel or you desire, but you stick with family beliefs and family truths. And so it's a hard thing to overcome these challenges and trials of social opposition, along with all the governmental opposition and geographical opposition. I think um, these poor children and people are struggling because they have that vision, they have that light of Christ inside of them, and that hope that they can be something greater than just a life form who lives and dies in the position that it's put. And I think this video kind of opened my mind to see that there's people out there struggling, and they're looking for the truth, they're looking for ways to overcome, but they just don't have the ability to do so yet. And I think God has his hand in it, and he's working on it, and he's preparing a way for all of them. But it's sad that it just can't happen simultaneously. And so I think in time, all things will be made right. It's promised that, but um, I I wonder what the next step is in these countries, and where the progression will be in the next 5 years, because I know that 185 countries have committed to at least attempt to give their children schooling. I wonder what the goals will be in the years to come, since it is 2015 now. But I have high hopes that in time these countries will become more educated, and they'll be able to find ways to make the best with what they have, and then to change their circumstances. Um, and I don't think it's necessarily our place to go in and try and change their circumstances for them, but give them the information so they can do it for themselves and for their countries. Um, and it was just a wonderful experience thinking about all of this stuff that I've never thought about. Um, and I kind of feel like um, Ken, when his mom was referring to him, as he understands it logically, but not so much emotionally. And I feel that emotional gap between these countries and myself is growing a little thinner, and I can start to see a little bit more into what they're feeling, and their experiences, because of um, this wonderful video, and because of the many resources that we have here in America. And so we truly are a blessed country.